have no idea how long I have wanted to talk about this particular franchise. I have been a fan of this one pretty much since it came out. I've always been fascinated in its world, and its characters, and its story, and how it all progresses through each sequel. But I just haven't been able to find a good time to actually sit down and review them with you. Well, now that the remake is coming out, not looking forward to it. It is finally, however, giving me a good excuse to finally sit down and talk to you guys about this series that I love so much. Now, yes, I am going to have my problems with this first movie, but I'm just going to tell you right now, these reviews are all positive. Like, even Writer's Berk is going to be positive. So, trust me when I say that I'm going to have my critiques, I'm going to have my flaws with some of these, but I'm just going to tell you right now, positive all the way through. Until we get to the remake. That has yet to be seen, even though it's getting praise, but I don't know. We'll see. But for now, let's just focus on the great animated stuff that we have here. And no, unfortunately, I'm not going to have time for Race to the Edge for now. Sorry. But excluding that, welcome to Dragons Month. Welcome to Dragon-Thon. Welcome to my review of this awesome franchise. So, what's up? What's happening? What's going on? Everybody, welcome back to Animation Station, your number of such a for anything, everything animation, including a Viking and his dragon, as well as TV and movies. I am your host, Jackson Small. Welcome to my long-awaited and extremely exciting review of How to Train Your Dragon. I'm so excited to finally talk about this, bro. Like, I have been a fan of this series for as long as I can remember. Like, I love all the movies. Dragon's Riders of Berk. It's going to have its problems, as we're going to talk about in the next review, but I do like that show, even though it isn't canon. But all three of the movies, really love all three of them. This first one, I do have a lot of problems, but I'm just going to say right now, it is positive, so don't jump down my throat or say that I'm ripping it to shreds. I'm not. It's just fair, simple criticism. But I still love all three of these movies, so they're not going to go below an 8. I'm just going to say that right now. So, without any more further ado or delay, here is my written review for the very first How to Train Your Dragon from way back in 2010. Let us begin. While I'm not really all that excited for the remake, I do genuinely love that it's finally giving me a chance to review the original animated trilogy, plus Riders of Berk, because it's without a doubt DreamWorks' most high-quality franchise. Sure, let's get the obvious out of the way. It's nowhere near close to being an accurate adaptation of the original source material. I have read the books, and I'm just going to say, the books are fine. They're not really anything that endearing or interesting. And if you want an example of how inaccurate to the books these movies are, it is that Toothless in the books is an unlikable douchebag. Like, he is absolutely unlikable and insufferable in the books. Whereas here, he is the complete opposite. So for once, this is a case where deviation is actually a good choice in the long run. Like, if we had an adaptation, a straight adaptation, one for one of the books, it wouldn't really work. At least not in my opinion. Okay, negatives out of the way first because I only have a handful of them. The animation, well, decent for the time. It does look good for 2010. It hasn't aged very well. There are some moments in this movie where the animation is a bit rough or feels very low budget by today's standards. But to be fair, A, it's fixed immediately in the other two movies, and B, it's more a product of its time rather than the movie's fault directly. Because you have to remember, 2010 technology was way different than like late 2010s, 2020s technology. So because of that, watching it today, you are going to notice a huge difference in the animation. But it's rough around the edges, but it's not like an eyesore or like the worst animation I've ever seen. Absolutely not. It's just one of those instances where you can tell it is aged. And unfortunately, animation-wise, it hasn't aged very good. The story is pretty predictable due to its familiar plot template of the underestimated hero trope. You know, the outcast that ends up doing something that's technically illegal, but ends up rising up and becoming the hero of his community, clan, etc., etc. Yeah, the movie is predictable. Like, if you've seen movies like this, you're gonna see every single beat and story part coming from a mile away. Like, it doesn't really deviate from that template, but it's by no means a bad template to follow. It's just, it's predictable. That's its one problem. It's predictable. The side characters, while funny, can be very hit or miss. Like, I do like the brother and sister, they are funny. And of course, I really love Astrid. But some of the other ones, like the jock character voiced by T.J. Miller, not a fan of him. He's a little annoying. And the bigger guy, sorry, I'm forgetting names at the moment, but he's fine. He's kind of just there for comedic relief, but he's by no means a bad character. And then you have other characters like Stoic's right-hand man, pun intended, where he's funny. I legitimately really like him. But then you have all the other high table Vikings who are kind of just there. So, yeah, the side characters are very hit or miss, is what I'm saying. Like, there are some really cool ones, and there are other ones that are kind of just eh. And the second act pacing is a bit odd. Yes, I get that the second act of movies following this particular trope have to be longer, pacing wise, and slower to really have that build up leading up into that next thing going on. So, yeah, that's where that comes in. But at the same time, it's like, it's too slow. Like, it feels like it's hard to really put into words, but there's my friend Dave. It's kind of hard to put into words what I mean, but I feel like the pacing of the second act could be just a little bit faster, just a little bit. Like, I don't think it's bad by any means, and it doesn't, like, ruin the movie or anything. But it does kind of grind to a screeching halt to go through all those beats you expect in this kind of story. So, yeah, just minor complaint. Alright, now that that's out of the way, now we can talk about the literal mountain of positives, because, like I said, super positive review, I just had my critiques and gripes. The main characters are great, especially Hiccup and Astrid. These two, genuinely love these two. And same goes for Stoic. Like, he starts out as that dad character that you've seen 1,000 times, but throughout the movie, he does get better, and I like him. Like, he is one of those characters that does some things you don't like, but you can understand why he does what he does, and he's by no means unlikable. Like, you can tell that he does have a love for his son. He just wishes that his son would follow a certain path. Again, following that trope to a T. Toothless is adorable. I mean, he's the literal mascot of this franchise. They took the one character from the books that was an unlikable douche and turned him into one of the most adorable, endearing, and somehow also awesome characters of this entire franchise. And what he's able to say with little to no dialogue is, it's great. Toothless is adorable. He is absolutely 100% adorable. Voice acting is excellent, especially from Gerard Butler as Stoic. Like, not only can you not tell it's him, so it's actual voice acting, Seth Rogen, but you can also tell how passionate he is in the role. Like, not just the accent, but his mannerisms and the little extra things that he adds to the voice. Like, he was dedicated to this role, and I will admit that I do love that the movie is allowing him to come back and play that same role in live action. That is genuinely smart, because even they know that Gerard Butler is Stoic, and no one's going to live up to that. And then you have other ones like Jay Baruchel as Hiccup, who, yeah, the voice takes some getting used to, but at the same time, he's also quirky and funny in his own way. And I already talked about TJ Miller. Like, he's not awful in his role as this jock character, but he's not great either. He's kind of just there. I prefer him much more as the nerdy guy in Big Hero 6. So, I don't know. That's just me. But the voice acting in this movie is excellent. No one's, like, half-efforting anything. The humor's pretty funny, with a good mix of dark-ish jokes and the usual goofy slapstick. Like from the dark jokes about, like, people losing limbs, which I don't know how they got away with that in a family movie, but I kind of love that they did, to all the goofy stuff you expect from a DreamWorks movie, but it's not cringe, and some of the jokes are actually genuinely clever and actually funny. Like, you have this one scene with this really fearsome dragon, and then you have Hiccup somehow managing to tame it and give it belly rubs. Like, the humor in this movie is funny. Music is incredible. This is something that I don't think anyone's going to be able to argue with. The music in these movies are out freaking standing. The Viking mythology of Berk is intricate and fascinating. Obviously, it's going to be built on more in 2 and 3, but even in this first movie, they do leave a lot of fascinating world building. The dragon designs are all distinct from each other and look really cool. Like, one dragon does not look like the other. Like, Stormfly does not look like Toothless. And that may seem like a weird thing to praise, but by today's standards, usually they'd all be like just a recolor of the same basic model. But here, they're all different, they're all distinct, and none look like the other. Which is great. So, that's really cool. The flying scenes are amazing. I don't think anyone's going to argue that either. The blossoming relationship of Hiccup and Astrid is really well done and feels genuine. Like, this is what I point to when I think of good relationships in animation. Because these two, they start off pretty much hating each other. Well, Astrid hates him, but you know what I mean. But slowly throughout the movie, you see her starting to come around a bit, and the two of them actually do form a cute couple. So, yeah, it's my 2 favorite characters in the series. It's kind of hard not to like them. The action is really good. Like, it is basic. I mean, again, this is the first movie. They don't have the super grand budget and scale they had in the next 2, but there is still good action here, especially in the finale with that giant Arctic beast thing. And rewatchability is very high. I rewatched this movie more times than I can count. The same goes for 2 and 3 as well. So, in conclusion, it has got its rough edges, but I can easily recommend it even today for all the great things it did and continues to do. Not just for DreamWorks by showing what they're capable of when they actually decide to try, but for cinematic animation as a whole. Like, watching this movie in 3D, it's an experience. Like, it is something that takes you on a ride and invests you in the world. So, I can definitely see why it worked so well when it came out in IMAX. But even without the 3D, it's still a very well-built and well-made film. Sure, the sequels are better, and this one does have its rough edges, and some things are worth critiquing. But this is still a great start. It's flawed, but it is still just so much fun. Like, even 10 plus years later, it is still a fun movie, and it's only gotten better every watch. Like, sure, rough edges, because of its time, but at that same time, it still just works in a way that it's kind of hard to elaborate. But those that have seen it understand why it's so great. It's funny, it's action-packed, it's endearing, it's genuine, it's fascinating, and it's just a lot of fun. This is what DreamWorks is capable of when they decide to actually put their all into a project and not just throw out another garbage sequel. Kung Fu Panda 4, I am looking at you. Final verdict for How to Train Your Dragon 1 is a flawed but very, very high 8 out of 10. This is still a great film, and it's still a movie that I can easily recommend if you love these kind of movies. But just be prepared for the predictable story, the side characters being hit or miss, and the second act pacing being just a little too slow. But if you can get around all that, you're in for a great time. And it'll always be a great film. Like, even now, it's still a great film. Okay. Now, before we get to the incredible masterpiece that is the sequel, first we gotta take a pit stop and talk about some weird non-canon thing that DreamWorks made for technically a cash grab, but is actually better than you might think. I'll tell you all about next time when we dive into Dragons Riders of Berk.